Is this for this year or next year?
Yes, Kate,
Next
that
year, I
is
think. So it looks
how
like
you spell
Emerald
Michelle.
City Comic Con, which is the closest um,
Hmm.
convention to us. Looks like the guest of honor next year is Mark Ruffalo.
Interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and Marvel just got Marvel Studios. I haven't read. I just heard. Um, Marvel Studios got the distribution rights to the Hulk back from Universal. So the Hulk was in a weird spot. So Marvel Studios owned the rights to the characters, but Universal owned the distribution rights to any Hulk movies. So that was why they never. Well, that was why Marvel Studios never made another Hulk movie and spread out his story through Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame. I see you have just discovered something.
You know who else is going to Emerald City Comic Con next year?
No.
David Tennant.
Oh! If he comes back to Raleigh, I'm gonna have to go because the photo that I have was $100. An autograph is also $100. I wasn't gonna do both at once, but if he comes back, I'm gonna take the picture that I got and get it signed now. Solo
That's awesome.
Hulk movies, they're tough. Solo Hulk movies have the same issue for me that Superman movies do. The Hulk is so insanely overpowered that there's like almost no way to beat him. So it's like the most interesting part of the story is how the writers depower him enough to make it possible to overcome him. The movie that I think they're the movie that I've heard the most talk about is World War Hulk. I don't know how they're going to do that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe though, because World War Hulk happened after Planet Hulk, which they already folded into Ragnarok. The story of Hulk on Sakaar was Planet Hulk. He is now back on Earth. So in the comics, when he came back to Earth, he launched into World War Hulk because of how he had ended up on Sakaar in the comics, which was not how he ended up on Sakaar in the movies. So I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll find a way to tweak it and make it work, but I'm just not sure how. Superman movies need to bring in Clark Kent's journalism more. They do. That's actually like an interesting human aspect of him.
Wow, they actually have some really good people going this next year.
Mm.
Matthew Lillard, Stephen Amell will be there.
Hmm.
Reese Darby,
Okay.
who is in uh, Our Flag Means Death. Katie
Oh.
Sackhoff.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh,
this one's just announced right now. Tom Skerritt from Alien, he's going to be there.
oh, nice. In the movies, Hulk
Yeah.
left willingly, so going back to Earth became different. Yeah. So in the comics, it was before the Civil War event. In the comics, the Illuminati decided that Hulk. So the Hulk had destroyed Las Vegas, and the Illuminati got together and decided he was finally too much of a threat to be left on Earth. So they trick him into going into space, and once he's in space, they basically trap him in a ship that shoots him through a portal to what was supposed to be a peaceful planet where he could just crash land and live his life peacefully as Bruce Banner.
Mm-hmm.
They misfired, and he landed on Sakaar, which had the Contest of Champions, where he needed to be the Hulk to survive, and so then he spent all that time as the Hulk in the Champions. I might be misremembering that. I think in the comics he landed on Sakaar and essentially had a gladiator, like the movie Gladiator storyline. Like he was enslaved, and then like he orchestrated a slavery rebellion, and like that was the whole Planet Hulk storyline, and eventually like escaped from that planet. So then when he comes back to Earth, he's got some animosity to deal with, and World War Hulk is his retaliation for them outcasting him like that. Yeah, in the movie, he decided to leave Earth himself because he decided he was too much of a threat. So yeah, him coming back, completely different uh, outcome. So let's see. Marvel Studios always had the right to the cinematic production of the Hulk because the character is an intellectual property of Marvel Comics. However, the distribution rights of Hulk were owned by Universal Pictures for 15 years. As such, the rights to distribute Hulk have reverted back to Marvel Studios. So they can now make their own Hulk movie. I'm intrigued to see if they try to do other versions of the Hulk. Like if they do a Hulk movie and introduce, well, they've already got She-Hulk, and if they try to introduce Red Hulk or Red She-Hulk, and I really hope they don't call them that because those names seem really lazy to me. But oh no, we lost video. Luke said that sounds vaguely right, but my memory is horrendous, so it could be. That's the thing. That story line in the comics was long enough ago that I'm mixing up.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. My mom asked me a question on Messenger, and I didn't realize it would turn the video off when I went to Messenger.
Gotcha. Yeah, Civil War in the comics was 2006. So the Civil War comic was 2 years before the first Iron Man movie.
Okay,
And
hurt me. When did Civil War the movie come out?
2016, I believe that was.
Oh. Wait, then when did Winter Soldier come out?
Before 2016. I think Winter Soldier was 2014.
Ow.
In other media.
That one hurts.
Yeah, Captain America
That's
Civil
my
War
favorite
was
Marvel movie, by the way, is The Winter Soldier. I've seen that more than anything else.
there. Yeah.
So freaking good.
I'd love to get the Illuminati, Mr. Fantastic. Well, we got a version of the Illuminati in Multiverse of Madness, right? That they were called the Illuminati in that.
Yes.
And I have a theory on what the Multiverse of Madness was setting up, and that is that, yeah. And my theory on what Multiverse of Madness was trying to set up and talking about incursion is that Earth 838 and the MCU, which has been confirmed to be Earth 1999-99, those two universes are going to collide in the movies. And the plot of that whole arc is going to be figuring out a way to get those two universes to combine rather than collide and destroy each other. And what we'll get, and this might be the way that the MCU sort of soft reboots some things, is that 838 and 1999 will combine into a new universe, which will have a new number. And so we'll get the Illuminati of Earth 838. We'll get the Wanda of 838, and then we'll get Doctor Strange, and we'll get Peter Parker, and we'll get the characters of the MCU in this new unified universe.
Honestly, you know what I need to be resolved?
So much.
I need the end of the Eternals to be resolved.
Oh, where you mean a gigantic stone head sticking out of the ocean?
That, and then the giant being over the entire Earth.
Oh, Arishem, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna I think, how'd that end? He took the three Eternals back to whatever the World Forge, where he's gonna break down their memories or something?
He took
Cersei?
He took Cersei and
Kingo. And
yeah.
The
Yeah. I can't remember his name. Fuck. I only watched that movie like 12 times. Yeah, he took them, and then it was Druig, Makari, Thena, who were on the ship.
And as Kate pointed out, Star Fox, who is Thanos's, in the comics, I believe, is his half brother. I think that's probably what they're going to lean on in the movies. Is going to be his half brother. If I remember correctly, he said something about the others judging them, some sort of trial of sorts. So what I think I remember from the movie is that he took, I pulled it up here, Phastos, Kingo, and Cersei
Right.
and he's going to analyze their memories of humanity, of 5,000 years of humanity, and
Mm-hmm.
decide whether humanity gets to live based on, which I thought was an interesting way of playing it, because they could have had Arishem just be like, "You defied my plans, and I'm going to destroy you." But instead, he was like, "You defied my plans, and I'm intrigued to see why. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
did you learn about these people that made them worth defying what are essentially the MCU's versions of the gods?"
And
And
killing
so,
one. Yeah.
right, and so he's gonna analyze their memories and decide if the Earth is worth sparing. Um, I have a theory too that they're gonna bring back Icarus for the second movie, but he's gonna have no memories of the first movie, of the events of the first movie. Because in the first
Mm-hmm.
movie, they talked about how after the destruction of every planet, all of them got back the world forward and essentially like reconfigured and put into new bodies, and that's where they
Mm-hmm.
wake up on the new ship. So I think in the second movie, we're gonna get a new Icarus waking up,
Because we never saw
and
him actually die.
well, no, he died. He flew into the sun per his
Yes, but
name.
we didn't actually see him die.
Right. But I think they are going to let him have died, but then we're going to get the next version of him, right? The new Icarus robot.
I don't know, because we never actually saw him die. So there's a chance that
No.
he could have been about to fly into the sun, and
Mhm.
Arishem was like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's entirely possible. Yeah.
So, because I mean, I'm a firm believer of if they don't show the person actually physically like perish, because all you see is him like close his eyes and like
Mhm.
fly towards the sun, but you don't actually see him fly into the sun. You don't see him burst into flame, whatever. So like,
Right. Yeah. I could see it going either way. But see, I like the idea that he did die. That version of him died in the first movie, and then in the second movie, part of the emotional trauma will be he doesn't know who Cersei is,
mm-hmm,
and the whole love story between them like gets turned into emotional trauma now because Cersei remembers him and he
mm-hmm,
doesn't know her. And
mm-hmm.
they could then play with the idea too that like this new version for Cersei, and it's this idea that no matter who they are, they always wind up falling in love with each other.
And then you've got
Also,
the poor boyfriend back on Earth who's about to become what's his character's
oh,
name?
he's Dane. He's hanging out with Blade, the
Yeah, because he's what's the name of his character?
Black Knight.
Thank you.
Yes, because he's got the. See, I thought when I was watching Eternals that yeah, similar to Gamora and Quill, I thought that they were going to combine Dane's sword and the Necro sword, but they didn't because in Thor Ragnarok, Gore had the Necro blade or the Necro sword,
Mm-hmm.
or yes, he did. He had a version of it. See, the Necro sword ties in with Venom because the Necro sword was the weapon of Null, which is the symbiote god.
Yeah.
Um,
See, I think all the shit they did with Gamora and Quill was bullshit, and I hate it so much.
yeah.
They
Wait, and
literally had 3 movies worth of character development. Just
just throw it out. Well, and
yeah.
that's so. Have you seen the third? Have you seen the third Guardians yet? Okay, there's they deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because the idea being this is a different version of Gamora, so like all the all the essentially it's what I was thinking they should do with Icarus and Circe. Yeah, like Hancock. Like Hancock. I enjoyed Hancock, but
I
you
don't know if
know
I've ever seen
he
Hancock.
could have gone through a few more revisions. Hancock was the one
It
with
has Will Smith and Charlize Theron.
right. Yep. And he's a superhero, she's a superhero, and yeah, there's dynamics between them that are very relevant to
Mm-hmm.
that plot. Um,
Oh, Charlize Theron could destroy me. Sorry, what?
I mean,
Charlize Theron could throw me into the sun. It's fine.
just get me into the sun. Just
Thank you, mommy. As I burst into flames.
It's fair. It's completely fair. Um, yes. But yeah, the idea of Quill having all the memories and Gamora not having them, and dealing with that idea of, and it kind of ties back in thematically with the idea of the sacred timeline that they used in Loki, and the idea that things are supposed to unfold in certain ways. And I've made a couple videos, and I think it was a year ago at this point, about how my conception of the multiverse, and particularly the Marvel multiverse, is that when you create an alternate timeline, time itself has a sort of gravity. And so the events of an alternate timeline will tend to realign with the events of the original timeline over time.
Mm-hmm.
So you change one thing and it causes other things to change, but eventually little details will sort of pull it back into alignment. It won't ever re-merge, but they become parallel. Um, and so the idea of like, okay, Quill and Gamora fell for each other in the original universe. This is a Gamora from another universe. But if events tend to realign over time, this version of Gamora will also see what the original version of Gamora saw in Quill.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am also excited for Loki season 2.
Oh my god, yes.
I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do with the Jonathan Majors stuff. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saddened, but they got to do what they got to do. We kind of see that visually with how the branch timelines bend towards the sacred timeline. Right. That's why in the whole series of videos I did with Avengers Endgame, or Avengers Postgame, where it's how I envision Cap returning all the stones to their proper times and places, is that afterwards he goes back into the past. I believe that he created an alternate timeline. I know the directors and the writers have two different versions of what they think happened. The writers
Mm-hmm.
think that there have always been two Captain Americas. There have always been two Steve Rogers in one universe. And the directors have stated that Steve created an alternate universe when he went back into the past. And so the conception I have is that in that alternate universe, Steve knows the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so he can actively continue to change things. Like the first thing that I imagine him doing is getting Peggy and Howard and the commandos and going and rescuing Bucky because he knows
Yeah.
he's alive. And so that just continues to change things. And so that universe doesn't fully realign with Earth 1999 because Steve is continually changing details and keeping it tangential. I call it Earth 200,000. It's just one difference.
Yeah. Kate said Majors is such a powerhouse. I need more of him. And unfortunately, he is an amazing actor, and I don't know if we're going to get more of him in the MCU after Loki. Because I don't know if you've heard, Kate, but I believe he's been arrested for assaulting his girlfriend. Like physically assaulting his girlfriend. Can't remember exactly what it was, but it's not great. Um, so they will probably drop him. I don't know. And then again, look at all the stuff with the guy who plays the Flash, and the fact that they continue to plan on working with him,
Yeah.
even though
It-
he's they went completely off the deep end. But
mm,
I mean, I do agree. Jonathan Majors is an incredible actor. I
yeah.
loved him in The Harder They Fall, the Western
Mm,
like black exploitation kind of film that they did. Oh, so good.
mm. I feel Steve is willing to sacrifice Luke. So I will definitely go back to that. I have a litany of reasons for holding to the theory I have. The information about Jonathan Majors. This is I don't know what website this thehindu.com. Jonathan Majors' accuser alleges that he pulled her finger, twisted her arm behind her back, struck and cut her ear, pushed her into a vehicle, causing her to fall backwards during a confrontation in March in New York City. The woman was treated at a hospital for minor head and neck injuries. This is all allegations. Um,
I thought he
his
was arrested for it.
He was arrested. His attorney said on Tuesday that she provided prosecutors with video evidence showing the accuser attacked Jonathan Majors, not the other way around. The woman was not named in court records. So he has a domestic violence trial scheduled for August 3rd. That's what's going on right now.
Hmm.
So yeah, Luke said, I feel Steve is willing to sacrifice so much that I don't know that he would risk so much changing. So there was a scene in Civil War where he said, if I see a situation going south, I can't just stand. I'm going to mess up the quote, but he essentially said, when I see a situation going south, I can't just stand back and do nothing. So if he went back to 1944, 1945, I have him going back to November of 1945 because I have him going back after the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima so that he couldn't attempt to interfere with that. But if he lands in 1945 and he knows that Bucky is alive and in Hydra custody, there is no version of Steve that I can imagine just going, oh, well, I can't change anything. He's not going to do that. Like,
Yeah.
the Time Variance Authority could come to him and be like, hey, if you do this, it's going to mess up the multiverse. And Steve would be like, well, that's your problem. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, Kate. So in that alternate universe, so the Starks were killed in 1991 by Bucky. So in the alternate universe, in Earth 200,000, the Howling Commandos, Peggy, save Bucky in 1945. They bring him back. They establish S.H.I.E.L.D. They're now sort of the core of S.H.I.E.L.D. What they don't know is that in that timeline, Hydra got from Bucky while they had him. And so they create the Wolf Spider program, and they clone him. And so there is a Winter Soldier in that alternate universe, and it's a clone of Bucky. And so when the rumors of the Winter Soldier start, spreading, Steve's like, how is there a Winter Soldier? We saved Bucky. Like, what's going on? And so he knows there is still a possibility that the Starks are going to be in danger from the Winter Soldier. And so he has to keep changing things he's got to save Howard and Maria. He's not going to let them die. But events continue to happen to try to pull the universe back into alignment. So saving Bucky doesn't prevent the Winter Soldier from existing. It just causes it to exist differently.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that kind of how, what was it? The animated Marvel show that What If? Isn't that what it was with What If with the Doctor Strange episode with Christine?
So in the Doctor Strange episode, they stole heavily from Doctor Who in that one, because essentially they introduced the idea of fixed points in time into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so Christine, no, the car crash was a fixed point. And
that she died instead of him.
Right. And so that was a fixed point. So him trying to change that broke that universe. So if you can, so if that were applied to the MCU or to
what is this canon events thing? I don't understand. I even read an article on it. I'd never heard of it until I read the article on it, and I still don't understand.
So you got to go see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So that's where it came from.
That's where it's most recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
No other explanation needed. I just all of a sudden people were talking about canon events, and I was like, wait, what? What is this? And they're like, TikTok created, and I'm like, okay. TikTok created what?
The teeniest, tiniest of spoilers. The hill I used to be willing to die on, I no longer have to die on because it is official. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse officially established that the MCU is Earth 1999-99. Because one of the characters in that, who is a multiversal character, mentioned...
I'll try to go see it next week.
Yes. definitely. Ben. I don't think he undersold it. It was better than he led me to believe, and he led me to believe it was incredible, and it was better. It makes me wish I had seen the first one in the theater. I missed the first one in the theater.
But at least you saw it.
I did, and I saw it before the second one. Unlike Avatar,
Mm-hmm. Still need to
so
see the second Avatar.
so I saw The Way of Water before I saw the first Avatar movie. The first Avatar movie came out in 2009. I saw The Way of Water in theaters, and then like a week later watched the first Avatar. Yeah. Luke said, "I need to go see it again. I had a bad theater experience which affected my view." Yeah. I do not get into altercations in theaters. So if I'm in a theater and there's people talking or like whatever, I will literally just sit there and go, okay, I'm just going to come back and see this movie again another time. And I'll just sit there and suffer through it. I don't deal with confrontation in a theater. Uh, I did have, I didn't have anybody in this theater like ruin it. There were people like talking a little more than I would prefer, but it was not ruinous.
I've
Yeah,
only
Kate.
had confrontation once in a theater, and I ended up just getting the manager.
Mhm. Yeah,
Went to see
that's it.
the King Kong movie with
Samuel L. Jackson.
Hiddleston,
Yeah. Yep.
and this kid would not stop running up and down the steps.
Oh no.
And I was like, mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
After like
That's what I
10
did.
minutes of them just running up and down the steps, I was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah. No. No. Yeah, Luke, that's what I did. I saw the second Avatar on opening weekend, and then I went back and watched the first one on Disney Plus. Kate said seeing Avatar was an experience, and that's part of the reason I think those movies make so much money. Like they've both made over 2.3 billion, and
Avatar
that's
was the highest grossing film ever.
right. And I think that's why, because like it's not the story. The story is essentially like Fern Gully, Pocahontas,
Mm-hmm.
Dances with Wolves. It's anti-colonialism. Like it's a very basic story, but it's the kind of movie that you have to see to really experience what is really innovative about it. And so people will go back and see it over and over because watching it on a TV at home, you're not going to get the innovative experience of that film. $5 billion between two movies is insane, though. I mean, that's almost what Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame did, though. Infinity War made 2.05 billion, and Endgame made 2.8 billion. So yeah, the two of them almost made $5 billion between them. Sometimes people talk about theater experience, and most times it's actually meh. But Avatar is truly an experience. Yeah, and seeing it in 3D because it used it created new technology for the 3D experience. So like that is the sort of thing that to get that actual experience, you have to see it in the theater.
Yeah, and like seriously, Ram, like it really is visually just incredible, and I recommend seeing it just because of how visually incredible it is.
What?
Yeah.
Avatar.
Yeah, it said the story is the reason
I mean,
I
no,
was
the
never
whole
even
one is
tempted to see it either.
fucking phenomenal.
And that's
Oh
the
yeah,
thing
like
is
it's
like
what's
I
the
fully support stories that
British
are like
number for having
that
watched it like almost
criticize
every other way.
imperialism and colonialism. Fully support that. Um, unless there's more to it, though, I'm like I support the idea, but like I don't need to go see every movie about that. This I am invested now, though. I'm intrigued to see what the fire Navi are going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they're going to live in a volcano. I love Avatar, but man, the humans fight like they do in 40K. I was disappointed with The Way of Water was that it was very much the same story as the first movie, like literally same villain. they changed him up a little bit, and it was sort of the same issue that I had with the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. I was like, you could have done anything, and you basically just retold the same story.
Hmm.
Like you had an entire world you could have explored, and you did the same thing.
Now, speaking of Avatar,
Hmm.
have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I have not.
Like, not the movie, the
Right.
show.
The show. I have not. No.
We're gonna have to change that.
Oh,
I just
I
heard
know.
Josh from the other room go, "What?"
Yeah, yeah. We've had conversations about the things I haven't seen and need to. Yeah, it's just yeah. Kate said it's just a bigger Death Star. It was they reran the same track so hard that they lampshaded it in the movie. Han was like, "Oh, it's
Timothy, happy 1 year friendiversary!
hey
Woo!
Genevieve, yes, welcome." Yep, we were talking about Timothy. We were talking about we got to bring back Shamash in the Wildmount campaign at some
Smash!
point. Whether it's like a 1, 2, 3 shot, like it's a small arc, one whole year.
It's crazy.
I think he's been the most productive of us over the course. Well, I don't know though. Nimue did get
I
married.
don't know. We've been writing like 4 books. It's pretty
Well, yeah,
productive.
yeah. Oh, yeah, we haven't even talked about that. Not the movie, emphasis, not the movie.
Not the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the amount of writing that we've done, like we've
Yeah.
written. Hold on.
We've written 135,000 words
Yeah.
in, I've got it listed as 4 stories. I don't know that it is actually 4 books, but we've got the one book. So the one story that's based on the characters that we played in the one shot a year ago today is temporarily called Lavender and Disappointment, but at this point it might just stay that title.
Hmm.
Um, I want to say that's over 60,000 words. So that's actually basically an entire. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. That's 35-ish thousand words. So it's about half of a book.
I'm
Um,
bringing up my transcript thing.
mhm. You know me and my Excel spreadsheets. I have a spreadsheet here somewhere.
I have word counter.
Uh-huh.
As it stands, which is
Let's see how
loading
close your
because we
numbers
have
are to
so
mine.
many words.
Yeah.
Uh, 34,257 words.
I have
As of my
34,260.
yeah.
Yeah. But if you include, why did I include those? Oh, okay. So, Language of Another World is 32,500-ish. I have Lavender and Disappointment at 34,200-ish. I have The Rook and the Raven at 31,000. I have Ice Cream for Dinner at 30,000 and Any Way You Like at 20,000. So, Any Way You Like and Ice Cream for Dinner combined is at 50,000. That's
Mm.
one story. Uh, Lavender Disappointment is one story. Language of Another World is the idea of the, I had a name for it. I can't remember what it was. The idea of the universes are connected to each other. Language of Another World is Leander and Kaelin in one universe.
Hmm.
Lavender and Disappointment is Leander and Aphra in another universe that are
Hmm.
adjacent to each
Good
other.
night, Luke.
Good night, Luke. Yes, thank you for coming. Um, so they're not the same book, but I think our idea was to have Lavender and Disappointment was going to be the first book, and then Language of Another World I think was going to be the first part of the second book, right?
Something like that, yeah. But I
Yeah.
think
Or
technically, as it stands right now, we are writing 2 books. Like
yes.
actively
Well,
writing 2 books.
yes.
We have the potential to make 3
Hmm.
if we write about Avi and Shane.
Yeah. So yeah, Rook and the
But we
Raven.
have like yeah.
Yeah, we've got Rook and the Raven, which is Avi and Shane, and that's 31,000. We've got the Lavender and Disappointment, Language of Another World series, and
Hmm.
then we've got Ice Cream for Dinner and Any Way You Like series. So three
Yeah.
three universes. And so I misspoke. That's 180,000 words total.
Holy crap.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Not doing
that does not even include our drabbles that are just in our chat.
Yeah, yeah. Those are
So
total
I think we can safely say we've written 200,000 words in a year.
easily. Yeah, yeah. So let's see. That is 500 a day,
Yeah.
roughly. Yeah, yeah. It's been very productive.
And we still have so far to go in lavender.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if we're using Lavender as the title of the series, yes, absolutely. If it's the book, like we'll have to pick a point where that's going to cut off and give way for the next book. Timothy's been brainstorming a book as well, but very slowly because he's a musician with weird hours. Yeah,
Touche.
write it.
I mean,
Write it.
technically, we only have about 30,000 words in lavender. So we still have another 70,000 words until we hit like a large novel.
Yeah, yeah, right. And that's
So,
so. And yeah, it depends on where we want to use language of another world. If we want that to be, I think the idea was that it was the second book because the first book is Aoife and Leander in their universe, and then the second book sort of expands into this adjacent universe, and Leander
mm-hmm,
was the connecting thread,
mm-hmm,
but then it introduces Kaylin and Liam, and then I think by the end of it ties them back into the larger story that brings them back around to um, Aoife and Leander
mm-hmm. Yeah.
by the end of the second book. The Trial of
Yeah.
the Guardians.
As well as Jade and Eamon.
Jade and Eamon, a separate universe, right? I think they
No,
were.
they're in Ethan Leander's universe,
That's right, because
along with Luna
and
and
Sloane.
Sloane.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
We've been busy. We've been busy world building and character building.
yeah.
It's fine. It's
Filling out the entire
Cap.
world.
Cap totally hasn't made D&D sheets for every single character that we've created, including NPCs.
Every
Not at
every
all.
character. I totally haven't used some of them in the kids game that I DM.
Not at all.
That's what's and but that's why I love coupling gaming with writing because you play the character, it gives you the story. So you're like, oh, I have this
Yeah.
character now. Oh, and now I have to sit down and write a story. It's like you could sit down and write a story, or you could sit down with five other people and play a story.
Well, that's why I've been absolutely loving co-writing with you
Yeah.
because it's kept things fresh and exciting. Because like we
Hmm.
we are same brain waves. Like
Hmm.
we hear things through the wall all the time and
Yeah.
like sometimes finish each other's sentences or thoughts. But at the same time, like it there's this beautiful connection of like I want the scene to go a certain direction. But I don't want to
Hmm.
tell you that because I don't want to skew the plans you have. So I kind of just go off of what you write. And nine times out
Yeah.
of ten, the ending point or like we'll have a discussion, this is where I'd like to see things go eventually, is almost
Hmm.
the same. Like we're so in tune there. But there's
Yeah.
also some times where I'm like, this is how they're going to respond if he writes this specific line the way I think he's going to, and then he
Right.
doesn't, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, well, that came out of left field. Let me reevaluate, and it's just really exciting to like have those
Hmm.
moments of like I know exactly what he's going to do, and then oh, he did not do what I thought he was going to.
Right. Well, it's almost like the idea of two universes running parallel to each other, because you're imagining it happening one way, and then something you didn't plan for happens. That's why, like, and I know we've talked about this, the idea of like me sitting here writing a conversation between two characters. There's not a lot of unpredictability there because I'm writing both characters. I am in the heads
Mhm.
of both characters. So the conversation as I write it is much more linear and
Yeah.
efficient in a way. Versus when you and me are writing, I have no idea what you're going to write. And so I have to react. My character has to react to what you write in the same way that I would have to react to something in the real world because I
Hmm.
don't know what's about to happen, which is not an experience you get as a writer writing all the characters. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really fascinating because you get to experience the story as it happens versus like, oh, I've already thought out this scene. I know how it's going. Now I have to just write what I already know happens.
Yeah. I definitely think a lot about uh, Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett when they wrote Good Omens.
Hmm.
Though,
Yep.
I mean, they did it as a chapter to chapter basis.
Hmm.
Um, because there was not really internet
Right.
back then like we have today, where I can literally sit in the document and watch you type the words out in real
Oh
time.
yeah. We,
Um,
we've talked about how you get to actually experience my actual writing process where
mhm.
I type out certain words and then it's like, no, I don't like that word, and I erase the word. And then I move something around and I take this piece of the sentence and move it over here. Like you get to see
You
the
split the
actual.
sentences in half. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You got to punctuate them out because I write sentences. My sentences turn into full paragraphs. Uh,
Well, yes, yes, I will say yes to that. But also, what I meant is like you'll write a sentence and then you'll like go about halfway through and then you'll like split the sentence and write something else or rewrite it and either reconnect that piece or just delete that piece entirely. And it's very interesting to watch the way your brain works when you're writing on the document. But
yeah.
I know also that you have talked about how interesting it is to watch me work because you have a degree in English. I
Mm.
do not have a degree in English. And I am not held back by some of the structures that were
Right.
taught to you in your degree.
Right.
And I would say you are definitely an out of the box thinker, but
Mhm.
it's like out of the box kind of thing for me sometimes.
Right. Well, see, it's two different ways of being outside the box because I essentially worked my way through the box. I had a teacher, I had at least one teacher I know, we had full conversations about this. The idea that good writers follow the rules, great writers break the rules, but you have to know the rules before you can break them. And great writers break the rules in specific, deliberate ways. And they do it to subvert expectations, that kind of thing. And so there are writers who write outside the box because they learned the box and they worked within the box long enough that they figured
Mm-hmm.
out how to step outside the box. But
Yeah.
there is so much to be said for writers who never learned that box in the first place, because then you're not beholden to rules that you then have to try to figure out how to break. And, and we have definite conversations where it's like, I hate the idea that there are people who have great stories to tell who don't tell them because they don't know the grammar or the punctuation. And some teacher at some point basically made them feel like they shouldn't write because they didn't know how to type. And
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, man, you write your story in whatever, if you got to write your story in text speak, write your story and we'll sort out the rest later. Like, I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
care if
I've
we got to
been
sit. Mm,
Yeah, well, I've felt very encouraged by you in a lot of ways because of that. I never necessarily had a teacher that like told me that I couldn't write, but I've never really
mm,
been a writer. Like I've dabbled in
mm.
poetry here or there when I was in high school, like any other moody high school teenager.
I don't know what you're
But
talking about.
I but I never actually thought that I would write a book.
Mm,
I always dreamed of it, but never it was too big of a bite to do the research
gotcha.
and everything. And I've
Mm,
felt so much encouragement from you because I think that you are just a phenomenal writer. You have just an incredible brain that just, when you write things, they hit me in my heart in ways that I've only really experienced with a lot of the great writers. And so when we're writing together,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, that paragraph or that sentence is amazing. I'm just like, thanks. Because like getting that encouragement from you, the fact that something I wrote hit
Mhm.
you in the way that your writing hits me
Mhm.
is like so encouraging for someone who does not feel like they're confident with English or with writing, with spelling. He'll be in the dock behind me, like just fixing words as I'm going along,
Yeah, well, and
or
that,
watch me as I like type, erase, retype, erase like a word like 6 times before he just types it out for me.
yeah. Well, and part of the reason for that specifically is I'm like, I don't want your thought to get hung up on a word. And I'm like, I'll
Yeah,
fix it. You just keep going. You follow your thoughts. I'll fix the letters. I think
yeah,
the most,
which has been really great.
yeah, yeah. Timothy said, I think the most intimidating thing about writing a book for me is writing dialogue. When I write dialogue, I say it first and figure out how is this going to sound if spoken? Because I used to when I was a moody teenager, I would write the dialogue, the dramatic. This is I want and then I like you read it and you're like, no one would ever speak like this. So I'm like, how do I
Unless
write
you're in
this?
like 15th century France.
You're right, yeah. So I'm like, how would an actual person say this? And yeah, that's so I will sit in here and just talk to myself in a way,
Hmm.
or talk to Nimue. And she's like, "What?"
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh no, it's I'm writing what this character's saying."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because sometimes the simplest way of putting something on the paper is the best way to do it.
yeah, yeah.
Unless you're trying to be over dramatic, like if you're writing a love scene and someone's professing their heart, that's when you hear people say like the stupid, like really overly complicated ways of explaining things because they were trying to sound,
Hmm.
sound smart or like get across a feeling. But a lot
Yeah,
of it is sometimes you have to just say the like, I like your face. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
like the
yeah.
simple
Exactly.
simple straight to the point, because then you can go back later if you don't like that line but you want like a specific
Mm.
feeling. You can go back
Right.
later and rework it. There's so many times I have gone back through things that
Mm.
we have written that I have read like 8 times, and then the ninth time I
Mm.
read it I'm like, I really don't like that line, and I'll go back and edit it. And it just sometimes it takes reading it a few times over and over, especially if you're like in a different mood.
Mm.
That's an important thing to
Right.
do too, is if you're in a different headspace, to go back and reread some of the things that you
Yeah.
were unsure about, because either you'll love them or you hate them.
Right. Yeah. He said he's worried he'll accidentally write dialogue as bad as Attack of the Clones. And there are like a couple of things that I remember from one of my screenwriting classes that a lot of times people talk around what they're talking about. Like people don't often talk about things; they usually talk
Mm-hmm.
around them. And so most of the time, what is being discussed is actually subtext, and the
Mm-hmm.
words are people's ways of sort of trying to get to the point without actually saying the point. Um,
Mm-hmm.
dialogue is often a case of less is more. Um, I am notorious for writing wordy characters, but at the same time, but see, I think I've compensated for that in the opposite direction. I have limited dialogue and so much description in between.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I have a line of dialogue, it might be, say it's 20 words of dialogue. That sentence or paragraph will be 85 words, but that line will be split up where there's a comma. Instead of just a comma and the next bit of the dialogue, it'll be a comma and then close quotes and then a description of what this character's facial expression is doing. or
Yeah.
what their movement is or what they're looking at. And I use that as an indication of what their words actually mean. Like he's saying one thing, but he's looking at someone's eyes, or he's
Yeah.
watching someone's mouth, or something like that. And so and what he's saying these words, but his attention is on these things. And
Yeah.
so you kind of give the reader a clue about what his dialogue actually means.
You also have to really figure out the timeline of like how long have these people known each other, and
Yeah.
think about relationships and friendships that you've had. That how do you address someone that you've known forever,
Mhm.
but also in that same case you might have known them forever, but have they been a close friend? Are they a family
Right.
member? Like, I've noticed this a few times. Like, I was watching MASH the other day, and there was a character that was introduced at the beginning of the episode, and uh, she had only been there for like in camp for like 2 3 days, but one of like two characters confessed that they loved each other. Like, her and one of the main characters of the show confessed that
Mhm.
they loved each other, and I'm like, but no.
Yeah.
You've known her for 3 days. You're not in love
Mhm.
with her. Like, I don't
Right.
feel like this is what someone would naturally say. And even
Yeah.
one of my favorite book series, like, the
Mhm.
characters like, yeah, this is my best friend. And it's like, you've known her for less than 24 hours, my dude. Yep. So I'm just like, when you're writing something like that, you kind of have to think of verbally and emotionally with each other based on how long have they known each other. Like, Aoife and Leander have been riding
Mhm.
this line of like being professional, like traveling companions and professional like dragon hunters, but they're
Right.
falling for each other. But it takes
Right.
time. Like, there's months, and we make sure that there's like the wording in the book to designate this time lapse, so that it's not like
Right.
they've been traveling together for a week and they're in love with each other.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
Exactly.
So it's important to think about.
Hey, Tears. Thank you. Yeah, Tears said her son is autistic. Their son is autistic, and they love my videos, and I appreciate that. I love them.
That's
I
awesome.
love that my videos. I said this earlier. I don't love making my videos, but I love that my videos mean as much as they mean to the people. They mean as much as they mean to, and that's why I will continue as using the teleprompter was a way for me to take away some of the painful process of making them. Whatever discomfort I have in making those videos, I will endure because of the reactions that I get, because of how much they help the people that they
Mm-hmm.
help. It is absolutely worth it.
Absolutely, Jimothy. He said, "Thanks, guys." If you
Absolutely.
ever want to
Thank you.
talk books, like actually physically talk books and writing with the two of us, like we should all hang out in Discord at some point.
Hmm. Well,
Because
it's
we've
like
done a lot of research.
I don't want to I don't want to drive anybody away from the live stream here, but if you go to my profile on TikTok and go to the link tree, in the link tree, the second link is my Discord server, and it's called the Foxhole. It's Discord time. Um, the second link on there is the Foxhole, and I have a voice channel. I'm actually in it right now. The voice channel is called Live Studio Audience. Um, I don't want to send anybody away from there, but yeah, that is everything. Um,
I will say the
Drew,
best thing about being a writer is the ridiculous things that you Google.
oh yeah, oh yeah. My search history is pure absurd chaos.
I swear I'm a writer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But
Like,
no,
one of the first. Sorry.
one of the first.
Oh, what I was gonna say was one of the first, the weirdest, best first Google searches was, how long does it take for a pool of blood to dry?
That's right. That was the
Because
first
I was
thing that
trying to
you
figure
wrote.
out how much if a dragon was killed in a cave, and they went back the next day to like loot the cave, how much of the blood pool around the dragon would be like tacky and semi-dried and how much would still be sticky and wet.
Yep.
Yeah, so I ended up on some very interesting college like dissertations for like forensic science of like criminal
Yeah.
investigation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Well, and you were talking about like how long people have known each other. I want to say I read this in a Stephen King book, but like he talks about the idea of internal languages. So like me and the wife, we've been together. My brain's not doing the right thing now. 18 years, 17 years. You
Almost
know,
18.
yeah,
18 next month.
correct. Yep, yep. I had to work
I
backwards.
love how I know when his anniversary is.
2025 is our
You've
20th
been, you've been
anniversary.
married for almost 18 years and together.
Right.
25. It's
17
fine.
and a half. Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
There you go.
The 21st, September, June 21st was me and my wife's 25th date anniversary. But yeah, so we've been married 17 and a half years. We can have conversations and fully understand what we're saying in like somebody else could listen in our conversation and have zero clue what we're saying because the words that we say to each other, we understand what they mean to us. So we can use less words. We have an internal language. Essentially, it's like a code that develops over time.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have been,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was his book, Lisey's Story, that Stephen King talked about that because in that book, um, the main character is a woman, her husband dies. And there's a point where she's trying to have a conversation with somebody and she's saying things that this person doesn't understand the full context of. And it's because when she said these things to her husband, they understood what they meant,
Mm-hmm.
but she doesn't have the same internal language with this other person. And it's that idea. And so it's also an interesting development of how that develops, because at first you'll have characters that are saying things, and then over time, the way they say those things to each other changes. Tommy said he once Googled how long it takes an apartment to burn. Love it. That shirt, this shirt brings back memories of keys under the doormat and Eggo waffles. Kyra. Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah, with the apartment thing, that makes me think of for the same book. I did extensive research on what happens. One, what happens to the human body, and two, what people experience when struck by lightning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like what they smell, what they hear, what they see. Like, I want this to be accurate as possible.
Yep. And I think the funny thing was, didn't we both research that same topic completely separately without knowing?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I researched it for Laz, and you researched it for Kaylin, right?
Yeah, you researched what it. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
because it was technically for the spell, Shocking Grasp.
Right. Yep.
And I was like, okay, so this is an electrical current. So I looked up like people who've been electrocuted, like
Mm.
people who worked as electricians and stuff, as well as people who've been struck by lightning, to find out what they experienced in that moment of the current going through their body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was an interesting day of research.
Oh, yeah.
I've researched a few things like that of like being stabbed and blood loss and and drowning. That was the other one for that specific scene.
Mm-hmm.
Good times, people.
Yeah. Yeah. Tommy said he mostly writes scripts, but the research gets just as weird. Yeah, I actually started my writing career. I went to the first college I went to. I was there for 2 years, and I was in the TV and film department because I wanted to write screenplays. Um, Clearly, did not go that direction, but yes, no, the research is 100% just as weird.
Hmm. I've been keeping a list of all the strange things I've Googled.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Um, no, one of the screenplays that I wanted to write it'll I'll remember it. I'll think about it randomly. It was called The Book of Joel. Is called The Book of Joel, and it was. I think I told you about it before. It is a story where it starts off the main character's name is Joel, gets a diagnosis of inoperable cancer and has like
Mm-hmm.
a few months to live. And within the first like probably 15 minutes of the movie, this character is approached by someone who would be played by ideally an androgynous Middle Eastern actor who claims to be Jesus, and essentially is like, I know you only have a few months to live. I have some stuff I need you to do. And it would be a borderline comedy because this guy would be like, I'm going to die. You have a to-do list for me? And it would be set in December, and it was going to be essentially, it was like a comedic sort of psychological way to poke fun at a bunch of pieces of Christianity that don't really make sense. Like Christmas is not supposed to be in December because Jesus wasn't born in December. Jesus would have been born in the spring. And so there were going to be things like that where Jesus, the character of Jesus in the movie is like, I don't know why they're doing all of this now. Like, I was not born at this point. But it was also going to be revealed very early on that no one else can see Jesus in this movie. Only Joel can. And the movie was going to be interspersed with essentially found footage. So the scene where they're talking about this was going to be in like a Starbucks. And Jesus was going to be like, before you start talking to me, I need you to know that no one else can see me. Everyone else sees you sitting at a table by yourself. And then it was going to cut to cell phone footage from like these kids sitting at a different table, showing that Joel is sitting at the table by themselves. Like no one else can see Jesus there. There was going to be some other point later in the movie where he's at an ATM, and it shows, and Jesus is standing there next to him, and he's talking to him, and it's an ATM camera footage, and it's just Joel by himself. And so the idea of the movie was going to be, is he actually being visited by Jesus? Or is it the brain cancer making him hallucinate?
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to actually talk about it. And Jesus was going to be like, does it actually matter? Like, both are true. Like, no one else can see me. I've told you no one else can see me. You know that you're the only one who can see me. But I wanted it to be an androgynous actor specifically because either an androgynous actor or a woman, because the idea was going to be that if Jesus was real and had no human father, Jesus would have had to have been a woman because Jesus would have been a genetic clone of Mary. There would have been no father's DNA to make Jesus male.